Welcome to the Academy of Sleep, your peaceful haven for calming lectures designed to help you drift off to sleep. I'm Mellow Matt, your soft-spoken narrator with a love for quiet stories, gentle facts, and late-night wonder. I'll be here to guide you into rest, one sleepy lecture at a time. If you enjoy our bedtime journeys and would like to support the channel, you can treat me to a warm virtual brew via Buy Me a Coffee. The link's in the description. Now settle in, take a deep breath, and enjoy tonight's lecture. What are cryptids? The hidden creatures among us. Introduction. Good evening. If you've found your way to this video, it likely means the day is winding down. Perhaps you're already in bed, wrapped in a warm blanket, looking for just the right sound to ease your mind and gently guide your thoughts into the world of dreams. Tonight, I invite you on a special kind of journey, one where myths and legends walk hand in hand with facts, and the line between fiction and truth grows so thin it nearly disappears. We'll be exploring the realm of mysterious creatures, beings science has yet to prove or disprove. This lecture is dedicated to cryptids, creatures of whispers, rumors, and the accounts of those who claim to have seen them. But what exactly are cryptids? They are beings said to dwell among us, hidden deep in forests, beneath ocean waves, in remote mountains or forgotten corners of the earth. Official science does not acknowledge their existence, and yet their stories endure. Tales of these creatures have been passed down for decades, centuries, even millennia. They appear in books and newspapers, in films and fireside conversations, and people search for them, film them, analyze tracks, and debate the evidence. Why are we so drawn to stories of cryptids? Because they remind us that mystery still exists, that even in our rational, researched, and digitized world, there are still places left unexplored. Because part of us wants to believe that somewhere out there, in the shadows of the forest or the depths of the sea, something unknown still waits. In this lecture, we'll slowly and calmly explore the world of cryptids. We'll uncover how their legends began, which creatures have most captured our imagination, which sightings continue to puzzle scientists, and which stories turned out to be clever inventions. And perhaps, by the end, you'll not only have learned something new, but you might also find yourself wondering, what if they really do exist? So make yourself comfortable, breathe deeply. Let the sound of this voice be your guide through a world of mystery and stillness. And if you happen to fall asleep before we reach the end, that's perfectly okay. These stories will still be here, waiting for you. After all, the secrets of cryptids are timeless. Chapter 1: The Origins of Cryptid Myths. The first mentions of mysterious creatures in human history. Since the dawn of storytelling, humankind has been drawn to tales of what might lurk in the dark. Long ago, our ancestors sat around fires in dense forests or beneath star-strewn skies, sharing accounts of strange things they'd seen or heard while alone in the wilderness. These stories varied from culture to culture, shaped by the land and the times, yet they all shared a common thread. They were born from observation, fear, and curiosity. Some of the oldest written mentions of mysterious creatures can be found in texts over 4,000 years old. The Sumerians and Babylonians left behind clay tablets describing beasts said to guard the edges of the known world. Ancient Egyptian scrolls tell of strange animals said to wander deserts beyond civilization's reach. To the people of that time, when the edges of the map were uncertain and forests and oceans seemed infinite, the idea that unknown creatures might be hiding somewhere out there felt completely natural. But these stories didn't begin with writing. Long before humans learned to record their thoughts on paper or stone, they passed them down by word of mouth. Oral tradition was the primary way knowledge and experience were shared across generations. And these tales weren't merely entertainment, they were warnings, explanations for the unexplainable, ways to define the boundaries of the known and the unknown. When a hunter vanished in the woods, the tribe whispered of spirits or beasts that may have taken him. When strange tracks appeared on the ground, villagers spoke of creatures that roamed the night. Whispers grew into rumors, rumors into legends, until a single mysterious event became the birth of a cryptid. Across the world, these stories took different forms. In Asia, people told of dragons hiding in rivers and mountain caves. In Europe, they feared basilisks and werewolves. In Africa, tales were told of giant serpents and ghostly cats. In Australia, there were stories of the bunyip and the yowie. In North and South America, tribal legends spoke of spiritual animals, protectors or threats tied to the land. Almost every culture, no matter the era or geography, created its own cryptids. The reason lies in human nature. Our minds are wired to seek meaning in chaos, to see shapes in shadows, to hear footsteps in silence. From an evolutionary perspective, it was safer to assume danger than to ignore it. Better to fear a shadow than overlook a predator. And so, we filled in the blanks. We imagined, we guessed, and from that legends were born. But fear wasn't the only force behind these tales. Many of them arose from a simple need to explain what couldn't be understood. A strange silhouette seen in the forest, a cry in the night, unlike any known animal, the discovery of bones no one could identify. All of these became seeds for new stories, stories that sometimes grew into myths passed down through centuries. As time passed, the legends only strengthened. New sightings emerged, new witnesses came forward, and occasionally so did evidence: odd footprints, tufts of fur, unrecognizable remains. Sometimes it was mistaken identity, sometimes deliberate hoaxes, but every now and then a story came along that defied explanation. These stories traveled from mouth to mouth, from parent to child. They became part of cultures and communities, and in time, they reached us. Today, we find traces of cryptids in ancient chronicles, in folklore, in the journals of explorers and sailors. All of them echo the same timeless desires to make sense of the unknown and to believe that there's still something left to discover. The human imagination, combined with keen observation and a thirst for answers, gave rise to countless cryptid legends. These stories have survived for ages because in every generation there are those who look at the forest, the mountains, or the sea and see something more than just nature. They see the possibility that the world still holds a few secrets. That wonder, perhaps, is not yet lost. The role of oral legends, fear, and observation. When we speak of cryptids, it's important to remember that most of these stories originated long before humanity began systematically exploring the world around us. For centuries, eyewitness accounts were often the only source of information about what lay beyond the edges of the known. People lived in small, isolated communities, surrounded by vast unknowns. Every night could bring hidden dangers. Every rustle in the woods might signal a threat. It was in this atmosphere of uncertainty that the tradition of oral legends took root. Stories weren't told just for entertainment around the fire. Legends of mysterious creatures served an important social purpose. They were warnings, explanations, and vessels for passing on lived experience. If the forest was home to spirits or monsters, that meant don't wander there after dark. If a lake held an unknown beast, it was safer to stay away from the water's edge. Through these tales, collective fears were shaped, reinforced, and passed down by the elders. Fear and observation often worked hand in hand. Imagine someone walking home through a dark forest. A sudden movement catches their eye. They hear a twig snap, maybe glimpse a pair of glowing eyes. They don't know what it was, and the mind, eager to fill in the blanks, begins to imagine. By the time they return and tell the story, the mystery has already taken shape. With each retelling, the details grow. A shadow becomes a creature, a sound becomes a growl. The rumor spreads, and soon the village speaks not of a rustle in the woods, but of a strange being that haunts the forest. Many cryptid myths began this way, born from moments of confusion and shaped by the human tendency to seek patterns and meaning. We are naturally inclined to recognize familiar shapes in what we see, in leaves rustling in the wind, in the silhouette of a tree, in the curve of a rock. At night, when vision fades and imagination sharpens, anything vague could become a creature, and any unfamiliar sound could feel like proof of its presence. Yet we shouldn't underestimate the creative force behind oral storytelling. These weren't dull or dry accounts. They were told with emotion and wonder. With each retelling, people added color, deepened the mystery, and made the unknown come alive. A simple tale about a sighting would become a full-fledged saga with a creature that had traits, behaviors, even supernatural powers. These legends did more than pass time. They created a sense of shared identity. Every region had its own stories, its own local cryptids, its own monsters, boogeymen, and guardians. These tales brought communities together. They united people through shared fears and beliefs. Sometimes they were used to teach children. Don't go too far, the monster lives out there. Other times, they were used to explain natural phenomena. The river flooded because the spirit serpent has awakened. And still, within even the most fantastical stories, there were often small seeds of truth. Someone did see strange tracks. Someone did hear an eerie cry in the trees. Someone did stumble upon the bones of an unrecognizable creature. These fragments of experience helped root the stories in reality, giving them staying power. As time passed and oral traditions began to be written down, many of these tales found their way into historical chronicles, travelers' journals, and collections of folklore. That's how they've reached us today, and how we're able to listen and drift into the world of ancient fears and endless mysteries. But most of all, these stories remind us of something essential, that at the heart of every legend lies a human desire to understand what cannot be explained, to find meaning in the chaos of the world around us. We've always searched for wonder just beyond the edge of the known, and that is why the tales of cryptids will never truly disappear. They continue to whisper to us, softly, like the wind through the trees, that somewhere in the hush of the night, something unknown might still be waiting. Chapter 2: The World's Most Famous Cryptids. In the vast ocean of legends about mysterious creatures, some names and images have risen to iconic status. These cryptids are known far beyond the places where their stories were born. You'll find them in newspapers, films, and tourist souvenirs. Books have been written about them, documentaries filmed. They have become symbols of the elusive, the unproven, the tantalizing unknown. Perhaps the most famous of all is Bigfoot, also known as the Sasquatch. Even those who've never taken an interest in cryptozoology have heard of this towering, hairy figure said to roam the forests and mountains of North America. The first reports of such a creature go back to the 19th century, but the real global fascination began in 1967 when Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin released a short video showing a large, humanoid figure slowly walking into the woods. That footage remains the subject of debate to this day. Some believe it to be an elaborate hoax, while others are convinced it's evidence of something real. And though no definitive proof has ever surfaced, neither has the video been conclusively debunked. For millions, Bigfoot remains not just a legend, but a possibility. Yet Bigfoot is far from the only cryptid to capture worldwide attention. On the other side of the world, in the dark waters of Scotland's Loch Ness, lives perhaps the most famous aquatic cryptid of all, Nessie. Stories of a lake monster date back to the 6th century, when the monk Saint Columba was said to have encountered a strange beast near the water. Over time, the legend grew, fueled by sightings, blurry photographs, and tourist tales. One of the most famous images, taken in 1934 and known as the surgeon's photograph, was long considered authentic. It was only decades later that it was revealed to be a hoax. Still, public fascination with Nessie hasn't faded. Hundreds of eyewitness accounts have piled up over the years, from people convinced they saw something unusual moving beneath the lake's surface. The story of Nessie shows how a single rumor, a vague image, or a fleeting moment can blossom into a cultural phenomenon. Around Loch Ness, hotels and gift shops are themed after the creature. Tourists visit in hopes of catching a glimpse, or simply feeling the mystery that hangs over the waters. A similarly eerie tale comes from the southern United States and parts of Latin America. In small villages and the edges of cities, people speak of the Chupacabra, a nocturnal predator said to attack livestock and drain them of blood. The first accounts of the Chupacabra emerged in Puerto Rico in the 1990s and quickly spread across the globe. Descriptions of the creature vary. Some say it looks reptilian, others describe it as a demonic-looking dog. Scientists and skeptics have offered many theories, from rabid coyotes to mass hysteria. Yet, like with so many other cryptids, no single explanation has fully solved the mystery. In Canada's British Columbia, people have long shared stories of a lake creature known as Ogopogo, described as a long serpentine beast living in Lake Okanagan. Indigenous peoples spoke of it as a spiritual guardian long before European settlers arrived. In the 20th century, reports, photos, and even videos emerged, but none have definitively proven the creature's existence. Still, the legend endures, passed down through generations. There are many other stories, lesser known to the general public, but just as intriguing. On the east coast of the United States, in New Jersey, locals tell tales of the Jersey Devil, a winged creature with hooves and a long tail said to haunt the Pine Barrens forest. The legend dates back to the 18th century and remains alive today, inspiring films, books, and eyewitness reports. Though these stories differ in setting and detail, they share a common origin: sightings, rumors, fragments of truth wrapped in uncertainty. Behind each is the human desire to explain the unexplainable, and perhaps the quiet hope that the world still holds wonders yet to be discovered. But the world of cryptids isn't limited to a few headline names. If you listen closely, if you peer into the hidden corners of the world, the places news cameras rarely reach, you'll find hundreds, perhaps thousands of stories. Tales of creatures that still live on in folklore, in our fears, and in our dreams. In the jungles of Papua New Guinea, among swamps and dense forests, villagers have told stories for generations about a mysterious creature known as the buru. It's described as a massive reptilian being, similar to a giant lizard, said to dwell in remote, marshy regions. Local tribes insist their ancestors encountered these creatures, that the buru hides in thick vegetation and emerges only under the cover of night. Several expeditions have ventured out in search of proof, but the jungles of Papua have proven too wild to navigate, and the evidence too elusive. In Europe, one of the most unsettling and peculiar legends is that of the so-called rat kings. This isn't a creature in the traditional sense, but a phenomenon where multiple rats are found entangled by their tails, seemingly fused together in a way that feels both natural and deliberate. Old records describe these cryptid like clusters being discovered in Germany, France, and Poland. To this day, debate continues over whether the phenomenon is real. Some call it a hoax, others a rare accident of nature, and a few see in it a dark omen or an unexplained pattern of the natural world. Far away in Australia, among dusty plains and dense eucalyptus forests, there's the legend of the yowie, a hairy humanoid figure, often compared to Bigfoot, but typically smaller in size. Aboriginal Australians have shared tales of the yowie since ancient times. In some stories, it is a protective spirit of the land. In others, a fearsome nocturnal predator. In recent decades, rural Australians have continued reporting strange sightings, fleeting shapes in the woods, eerie cries echoing at night, and tracks no one can explain. Equally compelling are stories from Siberia and the northern reaches of Asia. There, indigenous peoples have passed down legends of large, hairy humanoid creatures known as Chuchana or Almasty. These beings are said to avoid humans, hiding deep in the taiga, but from time to time, hunters or herders catch glimpses of their silhouettes. A number of expeditions have attempted to uncover hard evidence of the Chuchuna's existence, yet every time they've returned empty-handed, with more questions than answers. Then there are the many cryptids said to dwell in the sea, perhaps the perfect setting for legends to take root. The ocean is vast, and much of it remains unexplored. Across cultures and centuries, stories have emerged of sea serpents, giant octopuses, dragon-like beings, and underwater monsters. Many of these accounts may be the result of mistaken identity: whales, squids, schools of fish, but others are so vivid and specific that they challenge easy explanation. For example, in Scandinavia, ancient sailors told of the kraken, an enormous sea monster capable of pulling ships into the deep. In Japanese folklore, there are tales of namazu, a giant catfish believed to cause earthquakes. On the Hawaiian Islands, and all the way in Argentina's Lake Nahuel Huapi, people speak of Nahuelito, a sea creature resembling a plesiosaur hiding in the lake's depths. What's striking is how similar these stories are, despite arising in vastly different places and times. All over the world, regardless of language or culture, people have seen something in the forests, in the mountains, or beneath the waves that they couldn't explain. And these mysterious encounters became the seeds of new cryptid legends. Whether it's Bigfoot, or the Yowie, Nessie, or Ogopogo, Buru, or Chuchuna, these stories all share something essential. They survive the passage of time, the rise of science, the voice of skepticism, because within each of them lives more than just fear of the unknown. There is also hope. Hope that our world still holds secrets and that not everything has yet been discovered. Chapter 3: Rare and Fascinating Creatures. When we talk about cryptids, our minds often go straight to the big names: Bigfoot, Nessie, the Chupacabra. But if we look deeper into the history of human fears, legends, and eyewitness accounts, we'll find a vast layer of stories about creatures whose names are known only to a few. These cryptids never made it onto movie posters or souvenir mugs. Their images don't appear on t-shirts. But their stories are, in many cases, just as strange and just as mysterious. Many of these beings come from places where few people ever set foot. In regions where nature still rules, myths and reality are often so tightly woven together that it becomes impossible to separate one from the other. One of these lesser known but fascinating cryptids is Buru. Unlike many of its fellow creatures from the cryptozoological pantheon, Buru isn't humanoid, nor is it an aquatic monster. It's a massive reptilian being said to dwell in the swamps of Papua New Guinea. Described as a powerful, lizard-like creature, sometimes compared to an enormous crocodile, but with distinct features unknown to science, Buru's legend has been passed down through generations. Local tribes insist their ancestors saw it with their own eyes, and some elders still believe the creature hides deep in the marshlands. Expeditions have tried to uncover proof of Buru's existence, but the extreme environment, dense jungle, poisonous insects, suffocating humidity, and thick mist makes the task near impossible. In such places, it's easy to believe that something ancient and elusive might still be evading civilization's gaze. Equally strange and unsettling is the legend of the Rat Kings. Found mainly in Europe, particularly in Germany and Poland, this phenomenon involves clusters of rats bound together by their tails, sometimes in groups of dozens. These tangled masses, made up of both dead and living rodents, were reportedly found in cellars and barns. Each discovery was met with horror and disgust. In some cases, these grotesque formations were even preserved and displayed as ominous relics, proof of dark forces or signs of impending misfortune. Scientists have offered rational explanations. The tails may have become tangled due to filth, blood, sap, or frozen water. But none of these theories provide a clear answer. How and why this occurs remains a mystery. The unsettling nature of the phenomenon only feeds the myth further. Over time, people began to say that the Rat King brings disease, famine, or disaster. Far to the south in Australia, another lesser-known legend hides in the outback, the tale of the Yowie. For Aboriginal Australians, the Yowie is more than just a cryptid. It's part of spiritual tradition. In ancient songs and stories, the Yowie is a large, hairy creature said to dwell in the wild, untamed parts of the continent. It's described as something between a man and a beast, powerful, nocturnal, and covered in fur. Over the past century, Yowie sightings have come not only from Aboriginal communities, but also from farmers, tourists, and even police officers. People have reported strange silhouettes among the trees, chilling howls in the night, and massive barefoot tracks no known animal could have made. Yet, as always, when researchers try to find definitive evidence, they come away with only scattered reports, rumors, and footprints that could easily be faked. In Asia, across the vast wilderness of Siberia and the Russian Far East, legends speak of a creature called Chuchuna. It's a tall, hairy, human like being, said to possess immense strength. Indigenous peoples such as the Yakuts and Evenks talk about Chuchuna as if it were simply another inhabitant of the forest, an elusive neighbor living beyond the trees. According to them, Chuchuna avoids people, moves silently, and watches from a distance. The stories bear striking similarities to those of Bigfoot or the Yeti, yet Chuchuna has traits all its own. Some witnesses claim it uses primitive tools, making it seem even closer to humanity. Science, as with many cryptids, has no hard evidence of its existence, but the legend endures, like a living thread tying the past to the present. These stories, though little known to the wider world, are carefully preserved within local cultures. They remind us that mystery doesn't only live in the popular myths. Sometimes, the strangest, most haunting, and most unbelievable stories dwell in the shadows, waiting for someone curious enough to listen. But cryptids don't live only in forests, swamps, and jungles. Many of their legends are tied to the deepest and most mysterious places on our planet, the seas and oceans. And here, the list of rare but fascinating creatures seems endless. In the waters around New Zealand and the southern seas, old fishermen's tales speak of taniwa, spirit like beings that take the form of enormous sea reptiles or giant sharks. Among the Maori, taniwa are believed to guard certain coastal areas, sometimes acting as protectors, but other times reacting with hostility toward those who disturb their realm. These stories have been passed down for centuries, woven into the cultural fabric of the Maori people, becoming more than just scary tales. They represent a worldview, a spiritual relationship with nature and the unknown. On the opposite side of the globe, in the depths of the Amazon, surrounded by endless rivers and swampy forests, there are stories of a mysterious being known as the Mapinguari. It's described as a towering, fur-covered beast walking on two legs with immense strength and a foul odor. Some legends say it has a single eye and a massive mouth on its stomach. Zoologists studying these accounts have suggested the myth may be rooted in rare encounters with extinct giant ground sloths, the Megatherium, which once roamed South America. But to this day, local tribes insist the Mapinguari still exists, hidden deep in the most inaccessible parts of the rainforest. In the misty mountains of Vietnam and Laos, there's yet another unusual tale of Ngoi Rung, or the forest man. This hairy, human-sized creature is said to dwell deep within the jungle. Locals speak of strange sounds and glimpses of figures in the trees, and some claim to have found tracks or even encountered the being face to face. Little is known of Ngoi Rung outside its home region, but its legend closely mirrors the stories of Bigfoot and the Yeti, another thread in the global tapestry of humanoid cryptids. In certain parts of Scandinavia, there's a little known legend of sea beings called Sjöhästar, seahorses. These creatures are described as hybrids between massive sea serpents and horses, said to rise from the deep at night and drag ships into the abyss. While modern researchers often interpret these accounts as misidentifications of large fish or whales, old maritime journals contain detailed reports of encounters with creatures resembling the Sjöhästar, haunting equine beasts of the deep. Another rare but intriguing story comes from Central Asia, the legends of the Almas. These humanoid beings, said to resemble primitive people or ape like creatures, are spoken of in Mongolia, the Caucasus, and parts of Siberia. Unlike Bigfoot, the Almas are often described as shorter and less hairy, but possessing great strength and stamina. In some old travel records, researchers noted that locals spoke of Almas not as fantasy, but as real, if elusive, neighbors, creatures that live nearby but avoid contact with people. These and hundreds of other stories are scattered across the world, hidden in remote villages, buried in forgotten journals, or whispered in old folk tales. In each of them, there is a trace of fear, a spark of wonder, and that ever present human urge to find something more than what we already know. The tales of lesser known cryptids remind us that mysteries aren't always found in the headlines. Sometimes they live quietly in local legends, waiting for someone to listen, and perhaps in these stories that never became global sensations but remain alive in the hearts of communities, we can find a deeper truth that our world is still full of secrets. Chapter 4: Real Cases That Science Couldn't Explain. When we hear stories about cryptids, it's easy to dismiss them as folklore, fantasy, or children's tales. But there are cases that even the most skeptical scientists have had to take seriously, moments when facts, findings, and testimony left behind more than just myth. Sometimes legends turn out to be real. Sometimes evidence slips through our fingers like sand, and now and then what once sounded like fiction becomes part of scientific fact. These aren't stories born from rumors. They're cases that left a mark in the world of research, history, and the search for truth. One of the most famous examples is the story of an animal long considered a cryptid, the okapi. In the 19th century, European explorers in Central Africa heard tales from local tribes about a mysterious forest creature with striped legs. To outsiders, it sounded like pure fantasy. Early travelers described it as a forest unicorn or a spotted moose. Many scientists scoffed at the idea. But in the early 20th century, zoologists finally obtained pelts and later live specimens. The okapi was officially recognized as a real species, a distant relative of the giraffe, living deep in the dense jungles of the Congo. A similar story unfolded with another remarkable animal, the Komodo dragon. Before the 20th century, stories of giant lizards from Indonesia's islands were brushed off as myth. Locals spoke of dragons hunting deer and attacking humans. It wasn't until 1910 that a Dutch naturalist confirmed their existence on the island of Komodo. Today, the Komodo dragon is known as the largest lizard in the world, but not long ago, it was just another legend that science refused to take seriously. But not all cryptid cases have neat conclusions. There are episodes in cryptozoological history that still baffle scientists. One of the most intriguing is the phenomenon known as the bloop. In 1997, the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, recorded a deep, powerful sound in the southern Pacific Ocean. It was so loud that underwater microphones picked it up from thousands of kilometers apart. Researchers searched for answers: shifting ice, tectonic movement, volcanic activity. Yet none of the explanations matched the unique characteristics of the sound. What made the bloop especially mysterious was that its acoustic pattern resembled that of a living organism, but it was exponentially louder than anything produced by any known creature. Later, Noe cautiously suggested it might have been caused by ice shifting in Antarctica, but that theory was never confirmed. To this day, the bloop remains one of the great mysteries of the deep, reminding us that even in the ouch of satellites and science, the oceans still keep their secrets. Equally compelling are the cases involving physical evidence: tufts of hair, fragments of bone, or strange footprints found in remote regions of Asia and Siberia. In the Himalayas and other isolated areas, locals have long claimed these traces belong to creatures like the Yeti or Almas. In the 21st century, some of these samples were studied by scientists. In several cases, DNA testing identified the material as belonging to bears or other known animals. But in a handful of instances, the results were inconclusive. The DNA didn't match anything in existing databases. These findings didn't confirm the existence of cryptids, but they left behind unanswered questions. Could these traces belong to an undiscovered species, a hybrid, a relict population, something ancient that has somehow survived? We don't yet know. But perhaps the most intriguing cases aren't tied to a specific animal or a single sound. They are stories that have lingered for decades in the space between fact and fiction. The history of cryptids is full of such episodes, documented, recorded, but never fully explained. One example is the long-standing series of sea serpent sightings. Throughout the 19th and early 20th centuries, ship captains, sailors, and explorers reported encounters with massive snake-like creatures ranging from 10 to 30 meters in length. These reports came not from a single region, but from across the globe, off the coast of Scotland, in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, near Africa and Australia. Many were written in official ship logs, scientific journals, or confirmed by multiple witnesses at once. Modern science often attributes these stories to sightings of large squid, whales, or schools of fish that give the illusion of something serpentine. But in many cases, the level of detail, the consistency among witnesses, and the circumstances, calm seas, broad daylight, experienced mariners, leave room for doubt. Something about these accounts resists simple explanation. There are other curious events, too. In 1924, on a ranch in the United States, a series of strange footprints were discovered, said to have been made by a large, bipedal creature with 3 toes. The tracks were photographed and measured, and early examinations confirmed they didn't match any known animal. They weren't consistent with bear, deer, or large bird prints. The trail led into the forest and suddenly stopped. At the time, the case stirred a flurry of attention in newspapers and scientific circles, but eventually it faded from public memory, still without an answer. In the rainforests of the Amazon and Africa, explorers have often heard stories from local tribes about creatures unknown to science, creatures that, according to the people who live there, absolutely exist. These tales often come with detailed descriptions of behavior, appearance, and habitat. Local communities are sometimes puzzled when visiting researchers refer to these animals as myths. To them, these beings are part of the natural world, just rarely seen. In some instances, cryptozoologists have received photographs, videos, or other materials that defy easy classification. Yet the scientific community approaches such evidence with caution. Any image or recording can be doctored, misinterpreted, or misunderstood. Still, these materials continue to emerge, quiet reminders that perhaps we've yet to see the full picture. Finally, there are the cases of mass sightings, when dozens, sometimes hundreds, of people claim to have seen the same unexplained phenomenon at once. This has happened, for instance, during the Chupacabra panic in parts of Latin America, when entire villages reported nighttime attacks by an unknown creature that left behind dead livestock with strange bite marks. Many of these incidents were never solved. The tracks, the physical evidence, and the testimonies were all real, but no definitive explanation followed. All these cases, despite skepticism and efforts to rationalize them, remind us that the boundary between the known and the unknown remains fluid. Stories of cryptids are more than tales of myth and fear. They challenge our desire to categorize, to control, to explain everything we encounter. They remind us that the world still holds mysteries, and perhaps, one day, some of those mysteries will reveal their truths. Chapter 5: Scientific Theories and Explanations. When we speak about cryptids, it's important to remember that behind every tale of a mysterious creature lies not only emotion and imagination, but also genuine human observation. Still, the scientific community approaches such stories with caution and critical thinking. There are many theories and hypotheses that attempt to explain how these legends arise, and each deserves our attention. One of the most widely accepted scientific theories is that most cryptid sightings are the result of misidentified known animals. The human brain is wired to find meaning in the uncertain, to fill in missing details. This is especially true in moments of fear, poor visibility, or heightened emotion. In the darkness of a forest, a bear standing upright may seem like a towering humanoid figure. A strange sound at nights might feel like the roar of a monster. A print in the mud might appear far more mysterious than it truly is. Examples of such misunderstandings are quite common. Many supposed Bigfoot or Yeti sightings have later been attributed to encounters with bears, especially when the animal happened to be walking on its hind legs. Aquatic cryptids like Nessie or Ogopogo have often turned out to be nothing more than waves, floating logs, jumping fish, or the tricks of light on rippling water. Another key factor is the psychological phenomenon known as pareidolia. This is our tendency to see familiar shapes in random patterns, faces in clouds, figures in shadows, or creatures in the twist of branches or the foam of ocean spray. And when someone has already heard stories of a local cryptid, the mind may be all too eager to fill in the gaps and see what it expects to see. There's also a powerful folkloric influence to consider. Many cryptids are deeply rooted in old myths, regional legends, and inherited fears. When a child grows up hearing stories of forest spirits or sea serpents, they're more likely to interpret unfamiliar sights through the lens of those tales. Folklore becomes a kind of filter, a cultural lens that colors how we interpret the unknown. In this way, stories about cryptids are often passed down and reinforced across generations, whether or not any tangible evidence ever emerges. Some researchers also point to the role of mass psychology and social contagion in the creation of cryptid legends. Take the example of the Chupacabra. In several towns and villages, panic spread quickly after a few strange events. A mysterious attack on livestock led to rumors. The rumors spread into sightings, and soon entire communities believed they had seen the creature. People began to perceive what they were already primed to expect, fitting observations into a story already forming in their minds. In such cases, the number of reports increased rapidly, but the foundation of those reports often remained shaky. Still, not all scientific interpretations dismiss cryptids entirely. Some more moderate theories leave room for curiosity and the unknown. A few cryptozoologists and biologists acknowledge the possibility of so-called relict species, animals believed to be extinct that may have survived in remote, untouched regions of the world. One famous example is the coelacanth, a prehistoric fish thought to have vanished 65 million years ago, until a live specimen was caught off the coast of South Africa in 1938. That discovery reminded us that nature still holds secrets, even in an age of satellites and deep sea probes. So while many cryptid stories may be distortions of memory or products of imagination, we can't entirely rule out the possibility that some of them are rooted in biological reality, altered by time, distance, and the ever-curious human mind. Yet scientific explanations go beyond misperceptions and folklore. There's another important aspect to consider when we talk about cryptids: the simple truth that much of our planet remains unexplored. We often like to believe that in the 21st century, the world has been thoroughly mapped and measured, that every corner has been photographed by satellites, that every forest, every ocean trench, every mountaintop is known and documented. But this belief is, in many ways, an illusion. More than 80% of the world's oceans remain unmapped and unstudied. Many regions of tropical rainforest, mountainous terrain, and Arctic wilderness are still largely untouched by research. In these forgotten corners of the earth, it's entirely possible that unknown species exist, species that science has yet to encounter, let alone name. This idea is supported by real cases where science has uncovered previously unknown species of large animals, not in distant planets, but here on Earth. In 1992, deep in the jungles of Vietnam, researchers discovered a new species of mammal, the saola, sometimes called the Asian unicorn. This large antelope-like animal had remained unknown to the scientific world well into the late 20th century, despite decades of exploration in the region. It had long been known to the local population and had appeared in their folklore, but until its official discovery, it was considered a myth. A similar story occurred with the giant muntjac, a species of horned deer that wasn't formally described until the 1990s. These discoveries make us wonder: if such large animals can remain unnoticed for decades, what about creatures that are elusive, live in remote locations, and exist in such small numbers that the chance of encountering one is incredibly slim? Another theory sometimes suggested by cryptozoologists and naturalists involves the existence of unknown subspecies or biological anomalies within already recognized animal populations. In some cases, cryptids may not be entirely new species at all, but rather rare deviations, mutations, albinos, or unique individuals whose appearance or behavior inspires stories and speculation. Occasionally, these rare creatures, striking in their difference, have been the seeds of entire legends. There's also the matter of human memory and perception. Cryptid sightings often occur in stressful or unfamiliar conditions, at night in isolation, during hunts or fishing trips. Under such circumstances, our senses can become unreliable and memories may evolve with time. This doesn't make the witness dishonest, it simply makes them human. And of course, there have been intentional hoaxes throughout history. Some individuals have deliberately faked footprints, staged photographs, or spread rumors for fame, fortune, or fun. The most infamous example is the 1934 surgeon's photograph, the supposed image of the Loch Ness Monster, which was later revealed to be a clever forgery. These cases damage public trust and cast doubt on sincere reports, but they don't change the fact that unexplained encounters continue to happen. All of this shows how complex and layered the phenomenon of cryptids truly is. On one side, we have rational explanations, misperceptions, psychology, hoaxes. On the other, we have biological surprises, unexplained findings, and the very real discovery of animals once thought to be legend. Cryptid stories exist at the crossroads of science and myths, reality and imagination, and perhaps that's what makes them so compelling. Chapter 6: Cryptids in Culture and Folklore. Stories of cryptids are not just tales of strange creatures hiding in the shadows of forests or the depths of oceans. They are part of human culture, deeply woven into mythology, art, literature, and daily life. Those stories have long since moved beyond their local origins and become a global phenomenon, evolving alongside the societies that tell them. If we think about it, nearly every culture on Earth has its own stories about mysterious beings that dwell just beyond the edges of the known. These creatures have become symbols of mystery and fear, reflections of human imagination, and expressions of our awe before the unknown. In African and oceanic cultures, in the tribal traditions of the Amazon and Siberia, in Scandinavian sagas and Celtic folklore, cryptids hold a special place, often fulfilling important social and symbolic roles. In ancient times, legends of unknown beasts were a way to explain the unexplainable. When people encountered strange phenomena in nature, they often attributed them to unseen animals or spirits. Mysterious cries in the night, missing livestock, odd tracks in the soil, all of these became seeds for new tales. These stories helped bring order to the chaos of the world, offering a sense of meaning where otherwise there might only be confusion or fear. Folklore, in turn, preserved these stories as cultural heritage. Legends of cryptids were passed down through generations, evolving and gaining new details along the way. They became part of rituals and customs, entered into songs, fairy tales, and oral traditions. In some cultures, cryptids were seen as guardians of the forest, the waters, or the mountains. In others, they represented danger, the embodiment of threats that lurked beyond the village borders. Over time, cryptids stepped beyond the realm of folklore and into popular culture. In the 20th century, with the rise of mass media, stories of mysterious creatures found new life. Newspapers, radio, television, and eventually the internet gave these legends a platform to reach millions around the globe. In the 1960s, American culture was swept up in fascination with Bigfoot after the release of the Patterson-Gimlin film. Tourists began flocking to the forests of North America. Journalists wrote feature stories. Researchers launched expeditions. Bigfoot became more than a legend. He became a cultural icon. In Scotland, a similar process took place with the Loch Ness Monster. Nessie became a brand, one that brought millions in tourism revenue to the region. Her image now decorates souvenirs, restaurant signs, and hotel brochures. She became a symbol of how myth can transform into an economic and even national identity. But cryptids didn't stop at tourism. They became stars of films, books, comic series, and video games. Bigfoot, the Chupacabra, the Yeti, and many others have appeared on screen in everything from serious documentaries to comedies and horror films. These stories have inspired writers, artists, and creators across generations. Cryptids have become part of modern mythology, a new kind of pantheon where gods have been replaced by creatures who lurk just out of sight. Still, it would be a mistake to think popular culture only romanticized these beings. Often, stories about cryptids have served as metaphors for deeper fears and anxieties. They became symbols of the unknown, of the wild, of that which cannot be tamed or fully understood. In them, we see reflections of our fears, of nature, of the dark, of the vast and unpredictable world beyond the edge of civilization. But the stories of cryptids are not only reflections of fear and the unknown. There is always something else woven into them, something gentler, more inspiring, hope. Hope that the world is not yet fully charted, that beyond the edges of our maps and the limits of scientific understanding, there is still room for mystery, for something truly wondrous. This hope is part of what makes cryptids so compelling. In our modern world, where almost every corner of the earth seems accessible through technology, the legends of cryptids endure. They survive because they remind us that not everything has been discovered, that there are still questions without answers. They feed the imagination. They encourage us to wonder, to search, and to allow for the possibility that something lies just beyond our current knowledge. This yearning for the unknown has found expression in entire subcultures built around cryptids. There are communities of enthusiasts, amateur researchers, and lovers of mystery who gather on forums, create documentaries, organize expeditions, and debate the latest sightings. For some, the search for Bigfoot, Nessie, or the Chupacabra has become a life pursuit, a way to touch something science has not yet explained. The internet has played a huge role in preserving and expanding these stories. Today, anyone who experiences something strange can share their account with thousands, even millions, around the world. Videos claiming to show cryptids rack up millions of views, spark lively debates, and give birth to new theories and possibilities. Social media, blogs, and video platforms have become the new stage for modern cryptozoology, a field perched delicately between fact, folklore, and fantasy. What's especially interesting is how cryptids adapt with the times. Over the years, their appearances shift, their behavior changes, and sometimes even their habitats are reimagined. They evolve, becoming part of urban mythology, migrating from forests and mountains into internet memes and digital pop culture. And yet their essence remains the same. Behind each one lies a story about the unknown, about possibility, about a question with no clear answer. Some researchers believe cryptids serve another powerful cultural function. They help us stay connected to nature. In a world where civilization steadily pulls us away from the natural world, these stories of mysterious creatures in forests, mountains, and seas remind us that nature is still vast, still powerful, and still mysterious. They teach us humility. They invite us to respect what we don't yet understand, and they gently remind us that we are still part of something larger, something untamed. And perhaps that's why cryptids will never disappear from our culture, even if science were to someday prove that none of them exist. The stories would remain, because within them live our curiosity, our fears, and our hope. Because we will always need mystery to remind us that the world is wider, wilder, and more wondrous than it seems. Chapter 7: Cryptids in the Modern Age: Research, Expeditions, and Media. When we hear stories about cryptids, it's easy to picture a world of old maps and unexplored lands, a time when "Here be dragons" was scrawled across the blank spaces. We imagine these legends as echoes of a distant past, born from ancient fears and a need to explain the unknown. But the truth is, cryptids are not just relics of old folklore. The search for them continues, even now in the 21st century. In an era when satellites photograph every inch of the Earth's surface and global databases catalog known species in incredible detail, there are still those who dedicate their lives to the pursuit of the unknown. Surprisingly to some, cryptozoology, often dismissed as fringe or fanciful, is a real, if unrecognized, discipline. It has its own researchers, publications, conferences, and fieldwork. Since the mid 20th century, groups of enthusiasts around the world have organized expeditions to gather evidence for the existence of Bigfoot, Nessie, Chuchuna, and other elusive creatures. They interview eyewitnesses, analyze photos and video, collect tracks, and even test DNA samples. Some investigations are funded by private organizations or hosted by academic institutions. Others are the work of determined individuals, quietly pursuing a lifelong mystery. In the United States, there's the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, one of the largest groups dedicated to collecting and analyzing reports of Bigfoot sightings. Their website contains thousands of testimonials from across the US and Canada. Members of the group regularly conduct field expeditions, setting up trail cameras and audio recorders in remote woodlands, hoping to capture a glimpse of the creature that continues to elude them. In Scotland, despite the now famous revelation that the surgeon's photograph of Nessie was a hoax, searches in Loch Ness continue every year. Researchers use sonar equipment, underwater cameras, and even environmental DNA testing to try and find evidence of a large aquatic animal. In 2019, a major DNA study of the loch's waters revealed an abundance of eel DNA, leading to a new theory that the Nessie legend may have stemmed from sightings of unusually large eels. In Latin America and the southern United States, entire communities remain engaged in the search for the Chupacabra. Where livestock attacks have been reported, cryptozoologists, journalists, and scientists have examined tracks, analyzed remains, and interviewed witnesses. Though conclusive evidence remains elusive, each new case reignites public interest and sparks fresh debate across media and online platforms. As technology has evolved, the hunt for cryptids has entered the digital realm. On YouTube, there are entire channels dedicated to cryptid research, where investigators and curious minds review recent sightings, break down video footage, and share little known cases from around the world. Social media hosts thriving communities where thousands of users exchange ideas daily, post new evidence, and discuss encounters. The world of modern media has also embraced cryptids. Documentaries, films, podcasts, and blogs have transformed mysterious creature stories into full fledged entertainment, garnering millions of views and followers. Legends of Bigfoot, Nessie, the Chupacabra, and others now power entire franchises on streaming platforms. Their faces appear on t shirts, coffee mugs, and souvenirs. Their names headline news segments. This media presence doesn't just preserve these legends, it creates new ones. Every fresh video, every reported sighting becomes another thread in the tapestry of modern mythology. In the age of the internet, cryptids don't live only in forests and lakes. They live in the digital world too, where anyone can become a witness, a storyteller, or even a researcher. But the modern search for cryptids is not limited to documentary filmmakers and curious enthusiasts. At times, researchers from adjacent scientific fields, biologists, zoologists, and anthropologists, join the effort. While mainstream science remains largely skeptical of cryptozoology, some scholars recognize the value in the data being gathered. Even when a story of an unknown creature turns out to be a misunderstanding or a hoax, the process of studying it can yield insights into rare animal behavior, social psychology, or even hidden biodiversity in remote regions. In recent years, new technologies have entered the search. With the rise of drones, night vision cameras, infrared sensors, and high sensitivity audio equipment, it's become possible to observe some of the world's most inaccessible places without setting foot there. In North America, Australia, and parts of Asia, networks of cameras and motion detectors have been deployed in remote forests and wilderness areas, hoping to capture even the faintest trace of something unknown. One of the most groundbreaking tools of the 21st century has been environmental DNA analysis. This technique allows scientists to collect water, soil, or air samples and analyze the genetic material within them to determine what organisms have passed through an area, even if no visible trace remains. It was this very method that powered the large-scale 2019 expedition to Loch Ness, which detected a strong presence of eel DNA, but no evidence of large, unknown creatures. Still, the use of high-tech tools in the search for cryptids shows how the field is evolving and taking on a more scientific tone. Another fascinating development is the rise of digital cryptozoology, a phenomenon unimaginable just a few decades ago. In the age of the internet, anyone with a smartphone camera becomes a potential monster hunter. Every clip, every blurry image, every curious tale can instantly reach millions. People around the world film odd silhouettes in the woods, mysterious sounds in the night, or movements beneath the water, and post them online. Most of these turn out to be explainable: animals, lighting effects, camera glitches. But once in a while, something appears that defies easy explanation. Over time, a whole culture of digital cryptid researchers has emerged. They analyze videos, compile maps of sightings, cross-reference witness reports. Some do it for fun, others with a genuine desire to uncover the truth. The internet has become a new forest of myth and legend, and cryptids, it seems, have adapted. They now live in the virtual wilderness as much as in any physical one. A special role is played by the so-called witness community, thousands of individuals who claim to have seen Bigfoot, Nessie, or other mysterious creatures. Many of them create blogs and video channels, appear in podcasts and interviews, and share their stories, their feelings, and their memories. Their accounts form a kind of collective archive, a living mythology constantly being written and rewritten. And then there are those who approach the topic with humor and irony. In today's culture, cryptids have become not just the focus of research, but also icons of pop culture. Their likenesses appear on mugs, t shirts, stickers, and board games. Mobile apps and augmented reality games now invite users to hunt for Bigfoot or other creatures as part of playful, modern folklore. All of these expressions, from scientific expeditions to internet memes, confirm one thing: the story of cryptids is alive. It hasn't faded with the rise of science or the spread of technology. On the contrary, it has adapted, found new ground, and continues to grow. Today, cryptids live in three worlds at once: in the real world, among forests, swamps, and oceans, where researchers still search for them; in the digital world, through videos, forums, and discussions; and in the world of human imagination, where they have always lived and always will. Chapter 8: Regional Cryptids, Lesser Known Creatures from Around the World. When we think of cryptids, familiar names usually come to mind: Bigfoot, Nessie, the Chupacabra. But if we pause for a moment and listen to the voices of different peoples and places, it quickly becomes clear that the world of mysterious creatures is much larger and richer than mainstream stories suggest. Every culture, every region on Earth has its own legends, its own cryptids, lesser known perhaps, but no less fascinating. So let us take a gentle, imaginary journey across continents and cultures to meet a few of these hidden legends. Nyangia, the serpent of Australia. In the heart of the Australian outback lives a legend passed down through generations: the story of Nyanya, a giant serpent spirit. According to Aboriginal lore, it lives underground and guards sacred water sources. When the earth trembles or a new spring appears, it's said that the Ngiangia is shifting beneath the land. Though mostly viewed as a mythological figure used to explain natural events, there are still reports from remote regions of strange tremors, unusual sounds, and unexplained tracks. Kempet, the hairy creature of Cameroon. In the dense jungles of Central Africa, particularly near Lake Tele, locals speak of Kempet, a small bipedal creature covered in fur and resembling a primitive ape. It's said to be a nocturnal predator, sometimes attacking livestock, and in rare tales, even humans. European explorers heard these stories as early as the early 20th century, but no verifiable evidence of Kempet's existence has ever surfaced. Mokele-mbembe, the African dinosaur. This creature is more widely known within cryptozoology circles, but remains unfamiliar to the general public. In the vast Congo River basin, local tribes have told stories for centuries about a creature as large as an elephant, with a long neck and tail like a sauropod dinosaur. They call it Mokele-mbembe. Some claim to have heard its roar or even seen it moving through rivers or swamps. Since the 1930s, multiple expeditions have searched for it, yet none have returned with definitive proof. Nguoi Rung, the forest man of Vietnam. Deep in the jungles and misty mountains of Vietnam and Laos, indigenous communities tell of Nguoi Rung, or forest man. He is said to be a humanoid creature, about the height of an average man, but covered in thick hair and intensely shy, avoiding human contact. Western researchers first heard of Ngoy Rung in the mid 20th century, and although physical evidence remains elusive, the stories bear striking resemblance to those of the Yeti and the Almas. Dobhar Chu, the Irish waterhound. Irish folklore tells of the Dobhar Chu, a mysterious creature said to resemble a giant otter crossed with a hound. It is particularly associated with County Leitrim, where it's believed to dwell in lakes and rivers. Fast, strong, and known for its aggressive temperament, the Dobhar Chew has been mentioned in Irish writings since at least the 17th century, and occasional modern reports of sightings continue to surface. The Kasai serpent dragon, the river beast of Congo. In Central Africa, along the waterways and marshes of the Kasai region, locals speak of a fearsome creature known as the Kasai serpent dragon. Described as an enormous snake with horns and a dorsal crest, it is said to hunt at night and dwell in rivers and swamps. Some believe it could be a gigantic python or an unusually large crocodile. Others insist it's something else entirely. But as with so many cryptids, no scientific observation has confirmed its existence. Bendi, the forest giant of Indonesia. In the Indonesian province of Sulawesi, villagers speak of Bendi, a towering hairy figure with long arms and a fierce temperament. Local tribes believe Bendi is a forest guardian spirit who punishes those who disrupt the natural balance. Some researchers suggest the legend may stem from rare encounters with orangutans or other great apes native to the region, whose presence remains elusive in the deep forest. Tsuchinoko, Japan's legendary snake high in the mountainous regions of Japan, tales circulate of the Tsuchinoko, a short, thick-bodied snake with an unusually wide girth and the supposed ability to leap great distances. According to folklore, Tsuchinoko can mimic human speech and even lie or mock people. Stories of the creature date back as far as the 8th century. Modern sightings still occasionally appear in Japanese news, though no physical evidence has ever been found. Ahul, the giant bat of the Congo. In the tropical forests of the Congo, locals tell stories of the Ahul, an enormous bat-like creature with a wingspan of up to 3 meters, said to resemble a pterosaur. Some cryptozoologists speculate that the legend may stem from sightings of very large fruit bats, or even an undiscovered species of megabat, but no verifiable biological evidence has ever confirmed the creature's existence. Bakung, the jungle cryptid of Borneo. In the remote jungles of Borneo, indigenous communities speak of Bakung, a tall, muscular, fur-covered humanoid. It is believed to dwell deep in the rainforest and is often linked to the mysterious disappearances of people. Bakung is considered a forest spirit, powerful, watchful, and possibly protective. Some researchers suggest these legends may echo ancient encounters with relict hominids or unknown primate species. The Mongolian deathworm, Olgoi korkoi. From the windswept Gobi Desert comes one of the most terrifying legends, the Olgoi korkoi, or Mongolian deathworm. Said to be a large, thick-bodied worm up to 1.5 meters long, it is believed to kill with venom or electric shock. Nomadic herders have passed down stories of the worm for generations. Despite multiple Western expeditions searching for it, no concrete evidence has ever been found. Still, the stories persist, chilling and strange. Ropen, the glowing flyer of Papua New Guinea. Along the coastal regions of Papua New Guinea, villagers speak of the ropen, a glowing winged creature said to fly at night and emit piercing cries. Descriptions of ropen resemble a living pterosaur, leading some cryptozoologists to believe the legend might stem from sightings of large nocturnal bats or another unknown species. Though the stories are vivid, physical proof remains elusive. Voodoo, the swamp beast of Brazil. In the wetlands of Brazil's Pantanal region, locals tell of voodoo, a large, shaggy creature with long arms and a feral nature. Said to attack fishermen and herders who disturb the swamps, voodoo is both feared and respected. Some believe the legend may originate from rare encounters with unusually large monkeys or jaguars. Whatever its origin, the creature lives on in whispers and warnings passed down through generations. These stories, though lesser known than tales of Bigfoot or Nessie, reveal just how rich and diverse cryptid mythology is around the world. Each one is a reflection of local fears, attempts to explain strange events, or simply a way to pass down culture and tradition through storytelling. In every region, among every people, there are tales of creatures no one has ever captured, but in which many still believe. And perhaps, in those very stories, lies the secret of why cryptid legends never fade, because they speak to something timeless, to our curiosity, to our imagination, to our enduring belief that the world still holds secrets yet to be uncovered. Chapter 9, A Calm Voice of Reason. You are safe. Before we part ways with these legends and stories, let us gently return to the light of reason, because as fascinating as cryptids may be, and as rich and mysterious as these stories are, it's also comforting to remember you are safe. The world, for all its vastness and complexity, is not filled with monsters lurking behind trees or waiting in the dark. In truth, most stories about cryptids are exactly that, stories. They are shaped by imagination, culture, and the deep human desire to explain what we do not fully understand. Many sightings can be traced back to misidentified animals, tricks of light and shadow, echoes in the night, or even just the mind's natural tendency to fill in the blanks. Scientific research has shown us that our senses, especially in unfamiliar environments, can easily mislead us. A bear walking upright might look like Bigfoot. A floating log in a misty lake might be mistaken for Nessie. A startled coyote with mange can appear eerie enough to fuel tales of the Chupacabra. Psychologists also remind us that we are storytellers by nature. We seek patterns, we build meaning. And in the quiet hours of night when the world is still and imagination runs free, even the rustle of leaves can feel like something more. It's a beautiful part of being human, but it's also something we can take comfort in understanding. Modern tools, from satellite imaging to DNA analysis, have shown us just how well mapped and well understood much of our world is. Scientists and naturalists continue to explore even the most remote regions, and while they often make new discoveries, those findings tend to be small creatures, insects, or rare variations of known species, not giants from myth. So if any part of you still feels a trace of fear, let it go. There are no monsters in your closet, no shadows in the forest coming for you. The world outside your window is peaceful. The night is quiet. The mysteries, as enchanting as they are stories, and stories are safe. You are not in danger. You are not alone. You are resting, and the world around you is calm. Let this be your gentle reminder that curiosity doesn't need to come with fear, only wonder. Let the tales of cryptids inspire you, not frighten you. Let them carry you into dreams, not into worry. You're safe. You're home. And now the stories can sleep too. Conclusion. And so, our journey through the world of mysteries has come to an end. Together, we wandered slowly through the shaded paths of old legends, stepped quietly into dense forests, stood at the edges of deep lakes, and listened to stories rising from the heart of the jungle. We spoke of Bigfoot and Nessie, of the Chupacabra and the Mapinguari, of Buru and Rat Kings, of sea serpents and shadows in the night. We recalled moments when science stood silent, unable to give a clear answer, when legends turned out to hold a grain of truth, and truth blurred into myth. We talked of fears and hopes, of the human imagination, and the enduring power of stories, stories that survive the passing of centuries. Because cryptids are not just about elusive creatures, they're about us, about our longing to seek out what lies beyond, to see more than meets the eye, to believe that the world isn't limited to what we can measure or name. And maybe, just maybe, these stories hold not the truth about unknown beings, but the truth about the human spirit. We want there to be secrets left in the world. We want to believe that somewhere, deep in the forest, beneath the ocean waves, or hidden in forgotten corners of the earth, something still waits to be discovered. That the world is still greater than we imagine. And maybe some of these creatures are real. Maybe right now, in the remote taiga of Siberia, something watches silently as a human passes through. Maybe Nessie stirs in the dark waters of a Scottish loch this very night. Maybe the cries in a moonlit desert really do belong to the Chupacabra. We don't have the answers, and maybe we don't need them. Now, as you lie in stillness, wrapped in warmth, as the night hums gently outside your window and the city falls quiet, I invite you to release the questions and simply rest. Let these stories become a soft background to your dreams, your peaceful companions on the journey to sleep, where cryptids walk calmly through forests and mountains, not to frighten, but to keep you company. Because in our dreams, everything is possible. May your sleep be deep and calm. May it bring you rest and quiet joy. And may the legends of cryptids linger gently at the edge of your dreams, whispering their tales, so that when you wake, a drop of mystery remains in your day. So tell me, what do you think about cryptids? Do you believe that somewhere, out there in the dark forests, deep oceans, or forgotten lands, something unknown still hides? Perhaps you've seen something strange yourself. A shadow you couldn't explain, a feeling of being watched in the silence of night, or a story passed down that never quite let you go. If you have, I'd love to hear it. Share it in the comments below this video. We read each and every one. Who knows? Maybe your story will be the beginning of our next lecture. Good night and sweet dreams. Thank you for listening. Subscribe to the Academy of Sleep to continue this journey into the world of knowledge and mysteries. Your subscription helps us create more calming lectures and keep the channel growing with peaceful, thoughtful content. And if you'd like to leave a token of kindness by the fireside, you'll find a link to buy me a coffee in the description. Until next time.